Hi, I'm Scott, Machine Gun Dad. Welcome back to my channel. I'm doing this video in response to some comments I got. A while ago I did a video on why you should not make an open bolt Thompson semi-automatic, and recently apparently some people saw a video on the internet and they decided that I'm a FUD because what they saw in another video. So we're going to address this, and I'm going to try to settle this once and for all, because once I end up commenting back to the commenters, they seem to melt into space. First of all, in the other video, and everybody should probably know who he is, I'm not even going to get into a pissing contest. The entire claim of the video is because open bolt guns are not listed by name, they are not banned. That is, well, first of all, anybody that brings that claim should bring documentation to back it up. And in reality, documentation, especially when a lawyer's presenting an argument, is case law, rulings by a government agency, or example, okay? To the best of my knowledge, nobody has any of that. But I have 4 rulings by the ATF that prove I'm right. First of all, the first ruling was in 1968, was on a Spitfire carbine. A lot of people aren't familiar with a Spitfire carbine, but basically, on a Spitfire carbine, you could squeeze the trigger and manually push the disconnector out of the way with your finger, and the gun would run as a machine gun. So they declared a Spitfire carbine a machine gun. That was in 1968. That was even before any of the stuff with the open bolt Max and stuff. Then in 81 and 82, they came out with 3 rulings. One was ruling 82-2, that's on the KG9 open bolt pistol. One is 82-8, that's on the MAC-10 open bolt pistol. And one is 83-5, which is on the Sten open bolt semi-automatic carbine, which, I'll tell you the truth, I've never even seen a semi-open bolt Sten. Now, those rulings enumerate special model numbers, but if you go and read the rulings, and that's why I listed them, they specifically address readily convertible, okay? So remember that term, readily convertible, because all open bolts have the characteristic of readily convertible, open bolt semis, I mean. Now, does something have to be banned by name to be banned? No, it does not. I'll give you an example. In the drug law, they routinely ban drugs by content. In other words, if it contains a certain percentage of THC, it's a controlled substance and it's banned from general use. That's under federal law. Or a certain amount of opiates or whatever. But they don't list the names because drug companies can change names. All right? So they don't have to say open bolt is a machine gun. They just have to say that the characteristics of an open bolt are a machine gun. All right, so we know characteristics, we now have case law, and we now know, let's get to readily convertible. I've got in my hand a lower out of a Thompson submachine gun. Now this is a select fire lower, but I want to show you what a disconnector is and a sear so you understand my in-depth drawing I did. All right, hopefully my son will be able to pick this up because this is pretty small. Right in here, okay, this is your sear. When you squeeze the trigger, full auto sear, it drops out of the way on an open bolt gun. See how it just, so the bolt would slide forward. This is your semi-automatic disconnector. Now on a select fire gun, if you rotate the selector, the semi-automatic disconnector moves up. And what happens when it moves up? The bolt comes forward, hits the disconnector, and causes a reset. I'll do that again. It comes up, the bolt comes forward, hits the semi-automatic disconnector, and causes a sear to reset, stopping the bolt on one shot. That's a semi-automatic disconnector. That's how it works, all right? So now you know what a semi-automatic disconnector is. Now we get down to my really good drawings, which I know they suck, but I don't have a budget to have somebody do them for me. An open bolt system, any open bolt system, whether it be a fixed firing pin like a Sten or a Thompson or an MP40, a locking system like the BAR, which has a carrier, the roller lock system of the MG42, The bolt assembly, whether that's the bolt or the carrier, the bolt in the carrier assembly, inside the receiver, as soon as this moves forward, picks up a round and chambers it, it fires. All it needs to fire is this and a supply of ammunition. Now, to make it function, there's usually an ejector. Sometimes the ejector's in the bolt assembly, sometimes the ejector's mounted in the receiver. But this is mounted in the receiver. I don't need a trigger. I don't need a disconnector. I literally would simply pull the bolt back, and I've done this. Unfortunately, I don't want to take one of my guns apart to do it, but if you take a full auto open bolt gun, pull it back and let it go without trigger components in it, it'll just run until it runs out of ammunition, or it jams, one or the other. That's the only way to stop it. This system, all open bolt systems start here, okay? To make it a practical system, and you can use it, because what good is a gun where you literally pull the charging handle back, let it go, and it runs to empty? You can't aim it, you can't control it. They added a sear and a trigger. And usually there's a notch in the bottom of the bolt assembly. Under spring tension, the bolt's running back and forth. You release the trigger, the sear comes up, catches the notch, and stops the bolt in a rearward position. So you can get bursts, so you can get controlled fire. The gun isn't what a runaway gun, all right? So basically you have I always called it the on-off button. You squeeze it, the sear goes down, the bolt goes forward, it keeps running until you release the trigger and the sear comes up and stops the bolt in the rear. Machine gun. Semi-automatic open bolt, this one. Okay? I did it bigger because I had to put a little more drawing in it. Here's your bolt assembly, whether it's a BAR complete carrier or it's just a bolt assembly out of a Stenner or a Thompson. Again, it's moving back and forth, it's firing. You have your full auto trigger and sear, so if you want to do bursts, you can manually let go. But a semi-automatic requires that the gun resets every time it fires to lock the bolt to the rear. So a semi-automatic disconnector, which is usually a lever, comes up, just like I showed you in the Thompson, somewhere in front of the bolt. The bolt goes forward, it hits the semi-lever, which manually resets the sear. The gun fires. Since the sear's been reset, the bolt moves forward, comes back, and stops. Right? It stops, one shot. Okay, so you have a semi-automatic open bolt gun. Why is a semi-automatic open bolt gun readily convertible? Well, you got a Dremel tool, you got a file. You take that part off, and what do you have? You no longer have this, you have this, a machine gun. There is no way to build an open bolt semi-automatic pistol, rifle or whatever, that doesn't require a semi-automatic disconnector, the piece that I erased that would have come up here, all right? Which also means any of those weapon systems, you can simply remove the disconnector and the gun will run as a machine gun. Thus, all open bolt semi-automatic guns are banned from new production by the ATF because they are too readily convertible. They do not have to come out and say open bolt. They just simply say readily convertible, and I just proved to you they're all readily convertible. So anybody that, in conclusion, I'll show this to you one more time so you understand now that I've done the diagram. Again, here's your sear, here's your semi-automatic disconnector, right? When the gun's set on full automatic, the disconnector falls out of the way, which in a semi-automatic pistol means you've ground it off. The only thing you have is the sear stopping the bolt. So you drop the sear with the trigger, the bolt's going to run. All right? If the semi-automatic disconnector isn't ground off, you squeeze the trigger, it's going to hit the disc, watch the sear. It's going to hit the disconnector and cause a reset. If you remove this part, the gun's a machine gun. There's no doubt. I have, I don't know, 40 or 50 open bolt guns that if you remove the trigger, they'll still run. You just hold the hammer, you just pull the charging handle back and let it go. They become runaway guns because an open bolt system by design is a machine gun. The only way to make it a semi-automatic pistol is to add a disconnector to it, which you can easily defeat with a Dremel tool. Basically, what I'm trying to tell you is these people that say open bolt semis are illegal to be built are misinformed. They're playing legal garbage with you. And anybody that presents that as, oh, well, it doesn't say open bolt in the law, is playing legal tricks with you. If they can't produce an example, a case law in their favor, a ruling by the government, then they're full of hot air. There are no open bolt semis allowed to be built in the United States since end of 1981. Most of these rulings were in early 82. That's why 81 is known as the common knockoff. Now, if you really want to be interested in this kind of stuff, around 81 is when the rules on auto sears came out and stuff like that, and possession of parts. You might want to read that to learn about that, but that's not the subject of this entire video. Basically, if you're going to say an open bolt gun is legal to build in the United States as a semi right now, to sell to the public or to have for yourself, do it. Post a video of it. Prove everybody. Otherwise, you're just blowing hot air up people who don't know any better, and you're going to get somebody in trouble. Knock this crap off. We do not need to turn fellow gun owners into test cases for the ATF. Do I agree with this law? No, I don't think it's constitutional at all. But that's not the point. It's the law until it gets overturned. Don't set up fellow gun owners as sacrificial lambs. Hey, I know I'm going to get a ton of comments, and I'll try to address every one of them, but enough is enough, guys. Quit feeding the new people false information. Thanks again for coming to my channel.